When Love Turns Deadly. The true story of a date that ended in murder. Love has a way of making people feel invincible, like nothing can break the bond they share. But sometimes, beneath the smiles and promises, something darker hides in plain sight. This is not a story about strangers or serial killers. It's about two people who once loved each other deeply, until that love twisted into fear, control, and obsession. It began like any modern romance, with laughter, trust, and shared dreams, but ended in betrayal and death. This is the chilling true story of a relationship that became a trap, and a date that turned into a nightmare. In the summer of 2015, a small town in North Carolina woke to headlines that no one could understand. A bright, ambitious young woman, 24-year-old college graduate, deeply loved by her family, had gone missing after what seemed like a normal night out with her boyfriend. Her name was Emily Dawson, and she was known for her kindness, her laugh, and her habit of documenting everything on her phone. Emily met Ryan Keller 2 years earlier at a friend's barbecue. He was charming, soft-spoken, and had a way of making her feel seen. To everyone around them they looked like the perfect couple. Their photos told a story of adventure, road trips, sunsets, coffee dates. But behind the filters and smiles, cracks were already forming. Friends began noticing Ryan's subtle control. He insisted on knowing where Emily was at all times, who she texted, and even how she dressed. When she tried to push back, he would apologize, bringing flowers and promises of change. But his apologies always came with conditions. If you love me, you'll just let me protect you. Emily's friends grew concerned. One night, during a dinner party, she confessed quietly to a friend that she sometimes felt scared of him. He gets angry fast, she said. And when he's angry, it's like he's not the same person. Still, she stayed, believing love could fix what fear had broken. By early 2015, their relationship had turned volatile. Ryan's jealousy had grown worse. He often showed up unannounced at her job, accusing her of hiding things. She began avoiding social events to keep peace. Her parents noticed her energy fading. The once bright young woman seemed drained, cautious, smaller somehow. In March, Emily finally ended things. She told Ryan over the phone that she couldn't do it anymore, that she needed space to breathe. He didn't take it well. In the days that followed, she received dozens of texts, apologies mixed with accusations. When she stopped responding, the messages grew darker. You can't just erase me. Weeks passed and Emily started rebuilding. She enrolled in a new photography course, began jogging again, and even went on a few dates with friends. Then one evening Ryan reached out again, calm, apologetic, saying he just wanted closure. He suggested meeting for dinner, just to talk things through. Her friends warned her not to go. But Emily believed people could change. Against her better judgment, she agreed. The night was May 14, 2015. She texted her best friend before leaving, "If I'm not back by midnight, come get me lol." It was meant as a joke, a nervous attempt to laugh off the unease she felt. Surveillance footage later showed Emily arriving at a restaurant downtown at 7:42 p.m. Ryan was already there, waiting by the door. He hugged her as she walked in. The cameras captured them laughing at first, talking over dinner. Witnesses said nothing seemed unusual, though one waiter later recalled that Emily looked tense, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. At 9:15 p.m. they left together. Ryan insisted on walking her to her car. That was the last time anyone saw her alive. When Emily didn't come home that night, her roommate assumed she'd stayed over with friends. But the next morning her phone went straight to voicemail. By afternoon her car was still missing. Her parents filed a missing person report before sunset. Detectives quickly turned their attention to Ryan. When questioned, he claimed Emily had dropped him off and driven away after dinner. He appeared calm, even cooperative, saying, "I just want her to be okay." But investigators sensed something off. Phone records revealed a different story. The last text sent from Emily's phone, at 9:47 p.m., had pinged near a wooded area on the edge of town, miles from where she was supposed to be. Ryan's phone had been in the same location at the same time. 2 days later, police found Emily's car abandoned near an old quarry. Inside were her purse, her camera bag, and her keys still in the ignition. There was no sign of a struggle, but there was something eerie. The car seat had been pushed all the way back, far enough that Emily, who was petite, could never have driven it that way. Forensic teams combed the area. Cadaver dogs picked up a faint scent leading toward the quarry trail but lost it near a ravine. The search stretched into the night. When police returned to question Ryan again, his calm demeanor had cracked. He stammered, contradicted himself, and eventually asked for a lawyer. Within 24 hours, a warrant was issued to search his apartment. Inside, investigators found traces of mud that matched the quarry soil, and security footage from a nearby gas station showed Ryan buying cleaning supplies the morning after Emily disappeared. 3 days later, the community's worst fears were confirmed. Search teams discovered Emily's body near the edge of the quarry lake. The coroner ruled the cause of death as blunt force trauma. The timeline pointed squarely to Ryan. The town fell into shock. How could someone who once said he loved her end her life so violently? Ryan was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. As the trial unfolded, prosecutors presented evidence that told a story not of sudden rage, but of premeditated control. A man who couldn't accept losing power over someone he claimed to love. The courtroom was silent as text messages were read aloud. Messages where Emily had begged him to stop contacting her, to move on, to let her live. And then, in chilling contrast, the last message from Ryan: "If I can't have you, no one will." The news of Emily Dawson's death spread like wildfire through the small town. Candlelight vigils appeared almost overnight, photos of her smiling face surrounded by flowers and handwritten notes. Friends gathered to remember her laugh, her energy, and her dreams of becoming a travel photographer. Her parents stood silent in the glow of the candles, faces etched with disbelief. Ryan Keller was arrested 2 days after her body was found. When detectives arrived at his apartment, he didn't resist. He simply asked one question: did they find her? It wasn't the question of an innocent man hoping for a miracle. It sounded almost like resignation. In the interrogation room, Ryan sat slumped, eyes hollow, his hands trembling as he spoke. He insisted it was an accident, that they argued, she fell, and he panicked. But the evidence told a colder story. Investigators had already uncovered internet searches on his laptop from days before the incident. How to delete phone records, how police trace locations, can bruises show after death. The prosecution built a timeline piece by piece. Surveillance footage placed Ryan near the quarry the night Emily vanished. His fingerprints were found on the inside of her car door, even though he claimed she had dropped him off miles away. Forensic analysis showed traces of Emily's blood on a pair of his sneakers, faint but undeniable. It was enough to dismantle his version of events. As detectives interviewed friends and family, a clearer picture of Ryan emerged. He had been controlling, volatile, and increasingly obsessive. One friend recalled how Ryan once followed Emily on a night out, watching from across the street when she refused to answer his calls. Another mentioned a disturbing statement he'd made months earlier: "She's too good to lose. I'll never let her go." By the time the trial began in early 2016, the entire town seemed to hold its breath. The courtroom was packed every day. Local news cameras lined the entrance, capturing every expression, every tear. Ryan sat at the defense table, clean-shaven and quiet, occasionally glancing toward Emily's parents, who never once looked back. The prosecution's case was devastating. They reconstructed the evening step by step: the dinner, the drive, the confrontation near the quarry. Expert witnesses described how the injuries Emily sustained could not have come from a simple fall. They pointed to the deliberate movements, the cleanup, the abandonment of her car, the disposal attempt, as proof of intent. But what hit hardest were Emily's own words. Prosecutors read aloud the final text she'd sent to a close friend just days before her death. "He keeps saying he's changed, but I don't think he has. I'm scared he'll hurt me if I say no again." The courtroom fell silent. Even seasoned officers in the back row looked away. Ryan's defense team argued he had snapped in the heat of the moment, driven by emotional distress. They painted a picture of a man unable to handle rejection, consumed by heartbreak. But the jury saw something else: not heartbreak but control, not love but ownership. Throughout the trial, Ryan's demeanor shifted from defiance to exhaustion. At times he appeared detached, staring blankly at the wall as witnesses spoke. When his mother testified, tears streaming down her face, he finally broke down, but by then the damage was irreversible. After 2 weeks of testimony and 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in quiet sobs and whispers. Emily's mother wept openly as the judge announced Ryan's sentence: 35 years to life in prison. Ryan sat motionless. For the first time since his arrest, he looked small, a man stripped of the illusion of control. But the story didn't end with the verdict. Emily's family refused to let her death become just another headline. Her parents founded the Emily Dawson Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of relationship abuse recognize warning signs before it's too late. They began speaking at schools, sharing Emily's story not to inspire fear but awareness. Over time, Emily's face became a symbol of something larger, the silent struggles hidden in relationships that appear perfect on the outside. Her story echoed far beyond her town, sparking national conversations about emotional abuse, obsession, and control. Years later, journalists revisited the case. They spoke to investigators who still remembered the chilling details, how close Emily came to walking away completely, how one final meeting changed everything. One detective, now retired, said, "She did everything right. She left. She tried to rebuild. But sometimes people like him don't want closure. They want possession." Behind bars, Ryan kept to himself. Inmates described him as withdrawn, spending most days reading or staring out the small window of his cell. When interviewed by a prison psychologist years later, he admitted that he had felt her slipping away and couldn't bear the thought of losing control. "It wasn't supposed to go that far," he said quietly. But remorse, if it existed, came too late. Meanwhile, Emily's family continued her legacy. Her photographs, once just snapshots of ordinary beauty, were curated into a traveling exhibit titled Through Her Eyes. Each image told a story of freedom, hope, and discovery, the very things she'd been chasing before her life was cut short. The exhibit drew thousands, inspiring letters from survivors of toxic relationships who saw their own reflection in Emily's journey. One message left at a gallery read, "Because of her story, I found the courage to leave. Thank you, Emily." The tragedy that began as a private heartbreak had become a nationwide reminder that love without respect becomes control, and control without empathy becomes danger. Every year on May 14th, Emily's family and friends gather by the quarry. They light lanterns and release them into the dark water. One for each year she's been gone. The soft glow floats upward, a quiet defiance against the darkness that took her. And somewhere beyond the surface of that lake, the reflection of those lights dances, a symbol that even in the shadow of tragedy, love's true form endures not in possession, but in remembrance. Love can be the most beautiful thing, or the most dangerous when it turns into control. Emily Dawson's story reminds us that danger often hides in plain sight, behind gentle smiles and familiar faces. If you or someone you know feels trapped, unheard, or afraid in a relationship, speak up, before silence becomes regret. For more true stories that reveal the dark truths behind human emotion, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because in every headline, every case, and every heartbreak, there's always a lesson waiting to be learned, and a voice that deserves to be heard.